This is VK3SL. We're testing on 160 metres and 2 metres, and got the gongs here just to add a little bit of extra ambience. And pretty balmy in here. Hasn't cooled down in this room. It's a hot house. Well, maybe we can find music to suit. That could be a good idea. Oh, not music. We don't play music here. We play modulated sound, of course. It's all a part of this grand scheme to test the equipment, of course, and provide an opportunity for people to test their receivers. That's the notion, and except if you're listening on the stream. There's a streaming service as well for those who are unacquainted. You can look that up on qrz.com, and if you put my call sign in, that's VK3SL, you will find links, and you can navigate down and make those connections. Well, it is balmy in here, and I actually was supposed to be having an evening of South America or Cuban dancing tonight. Yes, Kate was going to take me out to some raving dance venue, and we were going to let her hair down, but the weather didn't prevail, and it all got cancelled. So we'll have to find something to set the scene, I think. So why not go back to Havana in the 1930s? VK3SL. Right, there we go. That was something exotic from South America. Let's take the record off and have a look what it is. I'll hold it up to the light, and what do I see? It's Xavier Cugat. It's London. It's not from. Well, it sounds exotic. It's Xavier Cugat and his Waldorf Astoria Orchestra. They were a London-based group, but it does have that vibe. Here's one from. Here's another one here. I've got quite a pile of Cuban records. I've been raiding them. So I'm sort of in the mode. I'm having a bit of a rest from 20s music tonight. Yeah. Let's have a look. Adios, Rumba, Havana, Novelty Orchestra. We'll have a listen to this one now and see where this takes us. This is VK3S. Whoa! put the stylus in. This is this wonderful magnetic pickup. It does make records sound good. Makes them sound alive. VK3SL. Right, bit of a false start there. This record's pretty damaged. It's gone white. This is what happens when these 78s have been overplayed. It was Adios, a rumba with the Havana Novelty Orchestra, recorded probably in the late 30s. What's on the other side? Marta, another rumba foxtrot. This is Mandelo Castro and his Havana Yacht Club Orchestra. That sounds pretty good. Well, should we give this a go? I hope it has a better start than the other side. But we're going exotic tonight, just a bit of change of pace. And we've got a few unusual things lined up for the later part of the program as well. And of course, this is all just about modulated sound. You know the rap.
de cantar, veo en ellos la vida.
Cuban music tonight on VK3SL, testing on 160 and 2 meters. So if you feel inclined, you can listen and be inspired or non-inspired or repulsed, whatever you feel. There is an option on the amateur airwaves for modulated sound. I'm looking at these records as I speak, and here's one of Desi Arnaz. Desi Arnaz, movie star, Cuban, I think, yes. And I think this one sort of takes off a bit. It's called Brazil. So another South American flavoured disc from the 30s. These all came from a stash I had in a box, which I only just found the other day. And these were put away decades ago for a certain birthday party. It was actually Kate's 30th. We went to Wilson's prom, and we had a whole stack of people come up, and we hired a few of those little cabins, and we bought a one-note gramophone and played heaps of Cuban music. We'd stayed up all night dancing to the stuff, and nothing's happened with it ever since. We've sort of forgotten about it. And then I found the box, and we played one last week, and they're pretty cool records, I have to say. So we'll nothing better for a hot, steamy night. So let's have a listen to Mr. Ardes and his band, VK3SL. yes, the harmonic rhythm of those clustered chords. Very effective, and the use of the flute. I like the flute in South American music. That was Brazil, Desianas and his orchestra. Another one from the pile is Edmundo Ross, who made it really big. He actually is sort of based in London more, but he had a rumba band. I think it was based at the Coconut Grove in London. Yes. Anyhow, this is another one. He's on an old Parlophonium. So we'll have another, I think, before we have a gear change. This is, inhabiting the South American habitat tonight. VK3SL.
De Nasleto, cerca ya de Bulundro, y escucho una discusión, mi compa está molesto. Yo fui casa de Nasleto, cerca ya de Bulundro, y escucho una discusión, mi compa está molesto. ¡Ay! ¿Y qué pasa? Yo preguntar.
¿Qué pasa yo preguntar?
¿Por qué cosas están peleando?
¿Por qué cosas están peleando?
¿Y qué pasa? Yo preguntar.
¿Qué pasa yo preguntar?
¿Por qué cosas están peleando?
¿Por qué cosas están peleando?
Y no me contestan, se quedan bubullando.
Yeah, that was Mr. Edmundo Ross before he went commercial. He went really commercial later on, and the early recording of him is quite exotic, quite flavoured. And I love these rhythm sections. Would have been so good to hear one of these bands live, because they just had massive rhythm sections and all of this complexity. And yes, there's something great about South American music, particularly Cuban music. I was caught up in that wave of interest in the subject when the film The Buena Vista Social Club came out. It came out in the early 90s, and that sort of sparked an awareness. It's a good film. It was made by Ry Cooder, I think, if I remember correctly, and he assembled all of these elderly musicians in their 80s who probably played on these very recordings, and got them together and made up a session band and had amazing success. They toured the world, and they were all octogenarians and still doing incredible stuff. In fact, they made a few CDs, and I think we'll finish this segment with one of their recordings. And it has a really sort of gutsy provincial flavour about it, and it's excellent. All right, VK3SL, we're testing, of course.
la carreta, me voy al transbordador a descargar la carreta para cumplir con la meta de mi pequeña labor. A caballo vamos pa'l monte, a caballo vamos pa'l monte, a caballo vamos pa'l monte, a caballo vamos pa'l monte. Sálvate, güey. Ahí viene Nicolo. Que yo trabajo sin reposo para poderme casar, y si lo llego a lograr seré un guajiro dichoso. A caballo vamos pa'l monte, a caballo vamos pa'l monte, a caballo vamos pa'l monte, a caballo vamos pa'l monte. Entero. A caballo vamos pa'l monte, a caballo vamos pa'l monte, a caballo vamos pa'l monte, a caballo vamos pa'l monte. Chapea el monte, cultiva el llano, recoge el fruto de tu sudor. Chapea el monte, cultiva el llano, recoge el fruto de tu sudor.
God, that sounds amazing through the speakers here. Yes, that was that's from the Buena Vista Social Club, a revival band for Cuban music in the early 90s. It was all a go. They did several world tours and they sort of dropped off the perch one by one, and I think there's now a second generation of that particular group. But that was one of their, it's the first CD they put out, about 91, 92, about that time. But it's great stuff. The film's good. It really gives you an insight into Cuban life and to these musicians lived in absolute poverty until they became famous. But and you had insight into their lives and their habits and their way of living, and it was really quite illuminating. Really, it was good. So yes, Cuban mania, and I think Mr. Coombs is going to Cuba soon, so we'll hear all about it. We'll have to come on and do a guest spot and tell us about Cuban music. So we'll change gear. I've got something else. Let's have a look. Oh yes, I was going through that pile of music from Kate's 30th, the prom box, and there was a couple of Fats Waller tunes, and I think these are ones with him playing the organ. So this is quite interesting. I quite enjoyed these. I haven't got many of them, so we'll put one on the platter. And I have not heard this really since about 1990 something. So let's have a listen. This is VK3SL. Of course, we're testing. We're doing nothing else but testing. And if you have any inclination to be entertained, please go onto the streaming service. That's the best thing to do. Here we go.
You tell me you love me only. Say you're feeling so lonely. But I know you're lying. That's why I'm crying. Now don't you try your jive on me. Oh, you ask me a whole gang of questions. You make all kinds of suggestions. If only you meant it, I wouldn't resent it. But don't try your jive on me. All day long, you hang around. Can't you see you bring me down? Yes, yes. I know that you think you're a sender. You'll never make me surrender. In fact, you don't rate. I'm telling you, Gate. Now don't try your jive on me.
There's something about the almighty, powerful Wurlitzer organ, and how visceral, how amazing that would have been to witness. Sit there in the theatre and have these incredible, larger-than-life instruments come alive with the likes of a good jazz musician. I think they're an amazing jazz instrument, and it's such a great sound. Here we go. What does it say? It's Fats Waller and his Continental Rhythm. The other side is Ain't Misbehaving. I haven't heard this for yonks. I've got to play these records more often. Let me change the stylus. I'll just circulate. We'll have a listen to the other side. This is beautiful. And we're listening to Fats Waller at the Organics. And this is VK3SL testing, of course.
Like a corner in the corner.
Yeah, that's one of those 78s with amazing bass, fullness of sound. It's really this is good. This is what I need. It's like an injection of energy at this stage of things to hear playing like that, and just that wall of sound, that Phil Spector effect. So, Mr. Waller. Now, what shall I do next? Got some OTR. Now, I know Jamie's probably listening, so hi, Jamie. It's one of yours. I played a bit of this the other day. This is the Ovaltine show. We played about half an episode, so I think we might follow on and play the rest of it, sort of local, and I think this one was recorded in Parks in New South Wales, and sort of a bit of connects with the people. So yeah, we'll hear the rest of this one and then we'll work out what's happening next. So it's VK3SL and we're testing on 160 and 2 meters in the narrowband FM mode. So if you have an AM receivers, you can just slope detect. Just go tune up to about 1865-ish and you'll find you'll get a reasonably fast signal. The distortion's is not too oppressive. All right, let's kick off with the Ovaltine show, VK3SL.
Well, that was a nice quick answer, Dad. Take this. If your family isn't an Ovaltine family already, you'll be doubly glad you came tonight because Ovaltine is the most delicious food drink. Not only that, but Ovaltine brings out the best in anybody who drinks it. Ovaltine tablets too for your family. You can carry those in the glove box of the car, munch them as you go along. They're good for everybody when you're driving, you see. Thanks for bringing her to the programme. Good night, Dad.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
And thanks for coming. Good night,
Good
Karen.
night.
And now here's Terry Deer again.
Well, having told you something about Ovaltine's record, let me talk about Ovaltine itself. It's a real food drink made from malt, milk and eggs with additional vitamins B1, D and niacin. When you add Ovaltine to milk, the milk becomes a power-packed health drink that's very easy to digest. And Ovaltine comes in 2 flavors, chocolate and malt. It's purely a matter of personal preference because both are really delicious. With all its concentrated goodness, Ovaltine is a fine source of energy, and that's something we all need every day. So it's a wise move to serve Ovaltine to all the family at breakfast time to get them off to a really healthy start. When we say Ovaltine brings out the best in you, we really mean it. You try Ovaltine, and you'll see we're right. Now listen to this.
Drink Ovaltine every day. It brings out the best in you.
3 children. What are your first names and ages?
My name's Lynette and I'm 11.
Stephen and I'm 10. Gordon and I'm 11.
We're going to talk about being perfect. How perfect are you, Stephen?
I'm not very perfect at all.
Oh, why do you say that?
Well, I'll muck up a bit now and then.
Are you perfect?
Oh, no, not actually. I'm not that perfect.
Not what perfect?
That perfect.
I see. Are your parents perfect, Stephen?
Oh, well, I don't think anyone's perfect. Takes a lot of practice to be perfect.
Very good, too. You're quite right. Well, what are the people around here like in Parks? I mean, are they all honest? Can you leave the doors of your car open when you go away and all that?
No, you can't.
Well, can't you? Well, I've been doing it. I thought it would be quite all right. How many are there in your family, Gordon?
Me, my brother and my father.
Oh, 3 men in your family, are there?
Yes,
I see. Dad goes out to work, does he?
yes.
Oh, who looks after you? Do you look after yourself?
Sometimes, other times my brother looks after me, other times they look after us at the boarding house.
You live at a boarding house. Do you look after your own washing and cleaning and that kind of thing?
Sometimes,
Oh, can you wash clothes?
sometimes.
Ever boil your socks?
No.
Oh, that's a good thing. How about your mending and sewing buttons on and things like that?
Sometimes I do it when I got the needle and cotton, other times I just leave it.
Well, you have to do it finally, don't you, eh?
Yes,
How old are you?
11.
Well, it's not a bad record for a boy, I'm sure, who's learning to look after himself. What's a perfect day for you, you know?
Oh, I don't think I've had a perfect day yet.
Oh, you poor old soul. I meant, you know, the best kind of day, the happiest day.
Oh, well, that's when I'm good and I get all the things I want.
You know, people often say that I dress in perfect taste. Would you believe that?
Oh, no, not really. Your shoes need a bit of shining up.
It's all this dust around parks, you know. They don't damp down the streets enough, that's the trouble. Would you say that I was dressed in perfect taste? Because I think you are.
Oh, well, you got a bit of fluff on your shoulders.
It's not the first time, I can tell you. Here's the secret word. The secret word is a sick creature. That's the clue. What's the creature and what's wrong with it? Here comes the answer for now for those at home.
A giraffe with a sore neck. A giraffe with a sore neck.
What is it?
A centipede with a corn in its toe?
Not a centipede with corns on its toes, but you're going on quite nicely.
An elephant with ammonia?
An elephant with ammonia. It isn't a chook with a croup either, because he opened the window on influenza. Not that. Not that, no.
Sick chick?
No, you're confusing a slick chick with a sick chick. Nothing like it. That's the bit of fluff on my shoulder. No, not that, no.
Centipede with chilblains?
No, we've had the centipede with corns and chilblains. This is a very... Well, if you told a story about this animal, it would be a tall story.
A lion with a laryngitis?
No, not a lion with a laryngitis. Not a lion, no.
A giraffe with a sore neck?
That's the boy. That was very good. You did very well. Stephen gets a big book, smaller ones for Lynn and Gordon, and Ovaltine for 3 youngsters, you know. It has such a wonderful chocolatey flavour, and Lynn and Gordon can sit down. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, Gordon.
Good night.
And here comes Stephen's parent on now in the Ovaltine show. Hello, Mother.
How are you, Mr. Smith?
I'm fine, thank you. Hop up here because you're short and I'm long like a giraffe with a sore neck. Stand next to him, that's the idea. Who's the most perfect person in your house?
I think our baby at the moment.
Which one?
The one 15 days old.
15 days old?
Yes.
Well, we've got something for him. It's rusks, Ovaltine rusks. These are very special for babies. You'll see the picture of the contented bubby on the pack. There it is. Ovaltine rusks are just the thing for babies, and they contain milk and eggs, and they're very important, and they're the right shape, and they exercise the whole of baby's mouth at the same time. You get the idea?
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith.
And when he said the first word he says will be tar for those.
I hope so.
I'm sure it will be. Here's a riddle. Why should pyjamas last forever?
Because I spend a lot of time under the pillow.
No, well, not... You do?
No, the pyjamas.
Oh, the pyjamas. Oh, I see. Why should pyjamas last forever? Because you never...
Wear them out.
You never wear them out, of course. That's right. All right. We made it. Look, take this tin of Ovaltine as well as the rusks, Mother. That's for the whole family, that Ovaltine. Wonderful in milk, so drink more milk the Ovaltine way, everybody. Ovaltine has extra vitamins to give you extra strength, and there's Ovaltine tablets too. You have the full range. They're for putting in the car in your handbag and just munching when you like, OK? Thanks for coming along to the Ovaltine show tonight. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Stephen.
Good night.
Drink Ovaltine every day. You'll love the flavor and love the way it brings out the best in you.
How very true. Why don't you prove it for yourself and start all the family drinking Ovaltine from tomorrow on? Ovaltine has so much to offer every one in the family. For the children, it makes milk much more enjoyable by adding a lovely chocolate flavor. And of course, as you know, Ovaltine is more than just a flavoring. Ovaltine adds much more to milk's natural food value, makes it easier to digest. In fact, the sparkling Ovaltine granules actually change milk into a super health drink, power-packed with the concentrated goodness of malt, eggs, and extra vitamins. Make Ovaltine your family health drink. Drink it every day. Find out for yourself that Ovaltine brings out the best in you.
And now it's time for the Ovaltine Pocket Money Riddle Roundup. Boys and girls are lined up on stage with their riddles, which they're going to try on me. And if I guess their riddles, they have to give me the forfeits, the small brown paper parcels, which they have in their hands. And all the children get 4 shillings anyway. It's as short and as simple and as easy as that. And the first riddle comes from little, thin, undernourished Alan.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
We always start with a brand new riddle. You thought of that, did you?
Yes.
You did. Why did the chicken cross the road? I don't know why.
Because he couldn't go under it.
All right, Portia. And Ronald hanging on to his Ovaltine, yes.
What is it which is emptied at night and filled in the morning, but one day of the year it is filled at night and emptied in the morning?
I'll think about that one and come back. Lawrence!
Why did...
Look, give this boy another tin of Ovaltine. Well, he needs it, I think. He really does. He's losing power here and strength. You take that other tin now. Just hang on to the tin and get strength. Now, you're ready. You're all set to go. Now, let's have it now with plenty of Ovaltine strength and energy. Come on.
Why did...
That's more like it. Ovaltine brings out the best in you.
Why was the watermelon full of water?
Why was the watermelon full of water? I don't know. Why was the watermelon full of water?
Because it grew in the spring.
All right, okay. I like that. And little Karen.
What is it that's often brought to the table, always cut but never eaten?
What is it which is always brought to the table, always cut but never eaten? A pack of cards.
Yes.
I got it right. All right. Where's your forfeit? I get some very expensive gifts with these forfeits. Let's have a look at this one. It's a matchbox. Inside, a piece of paper. You hold the box like that. I look at the sign, and it looks like a little round, flat thing, a rubber thing, and it says here, a washer for a drip. What was your riddle again?
What is it which is emptied at night and filled in the morning, but one day of the year it is filled at night and emptied in the morning?
That frightens the life out of me. I love you, baby. What's your riddle? Ovaltine won't help you. You want a memory tester or something. What is it?
What did they do in the old Egyptian days?
What did they do in the old Egyptian days? I don't know what.
They turned daddies into mummies.
And little Jennifer.
Why can't a bike stand up?
Why can't a bike stand up? I don't know. Why can't a bike stand up?
Because it's too tired.
It's too tired. Very, very smart indeed. And little Jeff with a big, broad forehead.
Why is
It's a nice-looking forehead, isn't it?
Why is
Good-looking hair, too.
Why is
And that pullover.
Why is
Not to mention those pants.
Why is
You got to tell me a riddle.
Yes. Why is
You want to, don't you?
Why is the graveyard so popular?
Somehow I feel old age creeping on. Why is a graveyard so popular? Why?
Because people are dying to go in it.
And little Lynn with a patient smile.
Why shouldn't you never tell secrets in the garden?
Why shouldn't you never tell secrets in the garden? Why shouldn't you never tell secrets in the garden?
Because beans talk and wheat have ears.
Beans talk, and wheat have ears. Yes, yes, oh, yes. 4 shillings for you too, Lynn. And Stephen.
Why did the man stand on the corner with a shotgun in one hand and the knife in the other?
Why did a man stand on a corner with a shotgun in one hand and a knife in the other? He didn't know whether to shoot up the road or cut down a side street.
The other way round.
Got my forfeit. Oh, it's a pair of swimming trunks. Oh, that's nice. pair of swimming trunks, so you can go jump in the lake. Oh, 4 shillings just the same. And little Gordon, what's yours?
Why did the engineer stop the train gently?
Why did the engineer stop the train gently? I don't know why.
because Dad had 10 to behind.
All right, okay. Now, Ronald, let's have yours again.
What is it which is emptied at night and filled in the morning, but one day of the year it is filled at night and emptied in the morning?
I don't know. What is it?
A stocking.
Well, all right. Well, that's that. Let's have a look at the score. It seems to me that I got 2 right tonight. The youngsters got 9. And I hope you children all around Australia and elsewhere had some fun tonight too in the Ovaltine Pocket Money Riddle Roundup.
Now we're going home, 'cause the piper said it's time for bed for all. Deep sleep for one and all, sweet dreams for children sleeping.
Well, that's that. Our first Ovaltine show. If you have any love left over, give it to a child. If you have any time left over, devote it to a child. And if you have any Ovaltine left over, but then you won't because children love Ovaltine, they really go for it. If you're not enjoying it already, start the whole family off on Ovaltine tomorrow. Your children deserve the goodness of Ovaltine. Right now, it's time for youngsters everywhere to clean their teeth, kiss mother and dad, and then... Good night, all.
Right, there we have it. That was our OTR segment, courtesy of Mr. J. Thank you for that. And we will give the gong and a message from our sponsors.
Mummy, why do I sneeze when I don't want to?
Well, that's because your nose is very, very ticklish and sometimes it gets upset.
Oh, you mean like a tummy ache in the nose?
Yes, I suppose so.
Life is full of sensitive moments. And when they come, you give your family a little extra care and attention, like the extra care you show when you use Mortine Mentholated.
All it takes is a little extra care.
Its cool, clear menthol formula is made specially for those in your family who are sensitive to the irritation of ordinary insecticides. And, as you'd expect, Mortine Mentholated kills all household insects quickly and efficiently. But its soothing menthol formula cares for sensitive noses.
All it takes is a little extra care.
Mortine Mentholated, with the extra care of menthol.
All right, you might have heard the instrument at the start of that performance. We'll play it again just to give you a little bit of a flavour for our next subject. That song kicks off with a very interesting electronic instrument. Here we go. There we go. That is a mellotron. And I thought it'd be fun to sort of have a bit of a mellotron riff tonight and look at a couple of songs where the mellotron's featured. It's a fascinating instrument. In fact, we did emissions on the mellotron when I very first started, and we had an interview with the designer, and there was a bit of background, but people may be aware that the instrument was very quickly taken up by pop groups. The Beatles and Manfred Mann, who we're just listening to now, they use the mellotron. Many other groups, David Bowie, Genesis, heaps, used the mellotron because it was the very first instrument that was effectively a sampler. It's before synthesizers were the run of the mill. These were incredibly cumbersome machines, and they had a reel of tape for every single note of the keyboard. There was a reel of tape, and attached to the key was a pinch roller. So and a capstan rod ran along the whole sort of chassis. So everything was sort of in constant motion, and then when you push the key down, a tape, a little bit like a machine. A tape would play, and you'd get the length of the note. So they're it's quite a convoluted way of doing things, but it's sort of worked. And it had a bit of delay, and they always had wow and flutter, so there's a real character to the sound. And there's a bit of a resurgence of interest, and I really want one, but I've had a look, and you can't get one for under about $50,000 now, unfortunately. So maybe I can get a Mellotron sampler. So I think I found an example of someone demonstrating the instrument and sort of speaking a bit more about its intrinsic qualities and also its mechanical qualities. And it's just a short little YouTubium thing, but it actually provides quite a bit of background. So I think we'll fade out Mr. Man here with his Mellotron, and we'll find this other example. So we'll see what we can find. Where is it here? We're looking. Here it is. The Mellotron Famous Songs is the name of the YT clip. This is VK3SL.
So let me show you why this instrument is different. If you're a keyboard player or a piano player, your instinct will be to go and start playing, right? But because of the way this instrument works, you actually have to press the key like aftertouch works on synthesizers. You have to press deep into the key so that you can actually produce any sound. If you just press softly, no sound will come out. So you have to really press. And of course, if you hold the keys for too long, you get that effect because the tape runs out, so it stops playing. And also, you could hear some wah and flutter there. That's also a very cool thing about the Mellotron. Not every note, if you play this note and you play it again, it won't sound the same. That's because you have the wah and flutter from the tape. So every time the sample, because that's the very first sampler, right? The analog type of sampler, it sounds different. So it's a very, very interesting instrument. You get lots of unpredictable variations. Let me play the sounds that this instrument comes with. And I guess you probably know what I'm gonna play. That's it. That's the original sound. That's the sound that, so many people try to replicate. It's so good. And it has this kind of vintage character because the pitch changes over time because of this mechanism and the tape that runs throughout the entire time. So, of course, let's try the tone. So I can make it darker. Amazing. Now let's switch to sound B and let's go back to 1969. Ground control to Major Tom. So cool. Dream come true. Okay, for 1 second, let's go to sound A, because I want to play a track that might not be very famous, but some of you that like industrial and Marilyn Manson might probably know this. Vocoder. Prick your fingers till it's down, the moon has now eclipsed the sun. I can't remember the lyrics. Cool, that was actually a Mellotron and Trent Reznor played it. Such a cool sound. When I was listening to it when the album was released, I didn't even know it was a Mellotron. Very, very cool. Let's go to sound C, and let's see what that is. That's actually such a cool sound. What can we play with this? Let's try this one.
No, I think we'll leave that there. So that was just a bit of an introduction. I can't find my headphones. Where are they? I need to put these on. Yes, so that was a little Mellotron expose, I suppose. And you just, this about the only one. It wasn't the. I would have liked something a bit more involved, but that's okay. It does paint the picture. And so what we'll do is we'll probably, here's one of the very first tracks that ever featured the Mellotron. And as you may be aware, I've been listening to lots of Manfred Mann 60s bands, British 60s bands in particular, sort of do it for me at the moment. And Manfred Mann is one of the bands that I really like. And they were one of the very first to use a Mellotron in pop music. Mr. Mann purchased one in 1965, I think, and used it straight away, and that inspired the Beatles, and the story goes on. So let's have a listen to one of the Manfred Mann songs, and this with the Mellotron, the very first of them, and it's a great tune, fantastic track actually, and it's just got so much 60s-ness about it, so I don't think there's any other way to describe it. It has the groove. This is VK3SL.
Sorry to hear you say you're gonna be his, not mine. Do you think you will be happy giving up your friends for your semi-detached Mr. James? So you finally got your man. I hope you won't regret it. Love you the way I can, so please don't you forget it. Do you think you will be happy buttering the toast on your semi-detached Mr. Most? I can see you in the morning time washing me. The weather's fine. Hanging things upon the line as your life slips away. So you finally name the day when wedding bells will chime. I was sorry to hear you say you're gonna be his, not mine. So you think you will be happy taking Doggy for a walk with your semi-detached Mr. James? Semi-detached Mr. James. So you finally name the day. So you finally name the day. So you finally name the day, Mister. So you finally name the day, Mister. So you finally name the day, Mister. So you finally name the day, Mister.
Isn't it a fab track? I love it. The semi-detached suburban Mr. James. That was a Manfred Mann and his band from 65, and you could hear the mellotron everywhere. You could hear the chorus effect. He obviously switched it over to the vocal thing, and apparently it just moves the tape. The tape's about, I think it's about half an inch wide for each key, and then when you change the character of the notes, you effectively just move the head over, so it sort of moves in between. And apparently you can make it set it halfway, so you get a little bit of each effect. So you get a bit of bleed through. So it would be so much fun to play with a mellotron. I really want one. So if any listeners out there have a mellotron and sort of superfluous to needs, and I'll get rid of something in here. I'll get rid of one of these consoles or something, and I could gladly put a mellotron in its place. I like the way it has a slightly wobbly start to each note. And it's got that sort of diction too, which is something else. Yes, so Mellotron City. Let's have another Mellotronics. I'll have a look here, and what do we have? Why not have a listen to a bit of David Bowie's Space Oddity? And this is the song that made Mr. Bowie famous, but it does also have a mellotron, VK3SL.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. 10. Ground control to Major Tom. 8, 7, 6. Commencing countdown, engines on. 3, 2. Check ignition and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way, and the stars look very different today. For here am I sitting in a tin can.
Right, we've been listening to David Bowie with Space Oddity. This is the official version, and it's actually a video, and it's incredible to watch because it's got lots of 1960s studio gear in it, and really bad camera work where they sort of went in and out of focus all the time, and the oscilloscope shots, heaps of oscilloscopes, and different modulation forms. Yes, we see the sine wave in all its guises, and and we it looks like a German console with the double fader thing. But yes, that was the backdrop to Mr. Bowie. It's only got 51 million hits. That's all. All right, so we're sort of exploring the mellotron a bit tonight. I've been reading about the instrument and listening to different recordings featuring it, and it's interesting. Once you get hear the sound of it, that it becomes a lot more obvious, and it's responsible for creating that solidness to a lot of British bands and their sound. Another one, Genesis, Watcher of the Skies. This is so mellotronic that the Mellotron company put out a special issue, Mellotron, based on the effects of this piece. So this is a bit of a groundbreaker. It goes for a while, so I'll just play a bit of it. It's very rhapsodic, goes on, and I want to keep moving. So yeah, that's all we'll play. VK3SL, we're testing.
Shaped this planet soil. Now the rain has come to end. Has life again destroyed life? Do they play elsewhere? Do they know more than their childhood game?
Alright, I'm sorry to disturb your listening. We'll have to fade it there, and we can refer to it if anyone wants to get more information. But we've of course heard Peter Gabriel and Tony Banks. Tony Banks was playing the mellotron and the Hammond organ, and it was all sort of mixed in with that big sort of wall of sound. And so yes, that's a quintessential mellotronic track. Genesis and Watcher of the Skies, the opening track on the Foxtrot album. Really progressive rock from the early 70s. And the other very famous mellotron piece is, of course, the Beatles and Strawberry Fields. The opening to this is iconic, and it sort of really put the instrument on the map. So let's go back to 1967. Well, there we go. That was the Beatles in their psychedelic mode there, featuring the mellotron. That's what it's all about tonight. We're looking at the Mellotronics, and that's probably the most famous song using the mellotron. Now, last week we also were listening to Mr. Granger, and hearing some of his free music, and music that he didn't actually get to hear himself in his lifetime. Well, not fully. He was able to annotate it and make very crude oscillators to represent some of it, but his ideas were never fully realised in his lifetime. But it's never been easier. And here is an example of some of his free music for iPhone theremins. Now, I'm encouraged by this because I want to see if I can turn my iPhone into a theremin. There must be an app. And I've always wanted to have a theremin. I think that's certainly another good missions topic, the theremin. I had to write that down. So, yes, but here we have Mr. Granger's piece, the piece that we heard last week, and for iPhone theremins. It's not very long, but we'll get a little bit of a buzz from this. Now we're moving into a slightly psychedelic space. VK3SL. Yeah, we just heard an example of Granger's free music. In fact, it's his free music #1, and a particular arrangement for 4 iPhone theremins. Something I'd like to look into. I think it'd be fun. Be interesting to explore a theremin in a portable device. And there's something quite hauntingly beautiful. I have a feeling, I'm not sure if that's exactly the same track I played last week. Maybe, maybe not. I did play another version of his free music #1, but it may have been, I think it was a different one. But if not, never mind. It's still interesting to listen to in different ways, different guises. But the notion of a theremin is quite a fascinating one. All right, so I thought we'd just have something else a bit Granger-esque now. And Granger had a close association with Edvard Grieg, a Norwegian composer, and played a lot of Grieg's music, and had the respect of Grieg, and was a champion of the Grieg piano concerto. Now, Granger also had this desire to be immortalised, and he was always looking for interesting ways to capture his playing mechanically. Records didn't really cut it for him because the technology was quite primitive when he was concertising, but he did make a lot of piano rolls, and he was looking for the most advanced technology to capture his playing on piano rolls with all of the expression. There were sort of high-level piano roll reproducing systems at that time, and some of them were very good. And Granger embraced that technology, and he recorded the entire Grieg piano concerto on piano roll, and it's since been played with an orchestra, and including one of the nights in the Proms about a couple of decades ago, and I found it on YouTube. It's quite fascinating, so I thought play it. I'll play a bit of it, just the first movement maybe. So we'll hear Granger sort of reincarnated in a sense, and it's a strange thing to watch because the orchestra's playing his piano playing on its own on the stage, a full grand, and it's the piano reproducing system that they used for this type of thing was you wheel up a device, and it had little hammers which actually played the keys, so it wasn't sort of an internal player piano mechanism, it was external, and that's the system they used. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It could be, it'd be another good research topic. Yeah, so I thought I'd just start this with a little snippet of Granger himself talking about his association with Grieg. This is from an interview with John Amos back in the 50s, I think. Yes, not long before Granger died. He's pretty old here. But he does talk about his association with Grieg, and then we'll follow it on with the first movement from the BBC of the Grieg Piano Concerto from the BBC Proms. And recorded in the 80s, something like that. The ABC actually made a recording of it with John Hopkins and the Melbourne Symphony as well. I've got that here somewhere, but there's a live performance at the Proms is a bit more compelling. So let's have a listen to Mr. G. This is VK3SL.
Grieg was a composer that Granger excelled in, and their names are often associated. When they met, Grieg was 40 years older than the 23-year-old Granger.
I met him at Lady Spire's. The Spires were then financing the Queen's Hall Orchestra, and Grieg was engaged to give 2 concerts. And Grieg was staying with the Spires and was very ill. It was only a year before he died. And the Lady Spire asked Grieg if there's anybody who'd like to meet in London. And he said, "Oh, I'm so weak and ill, I would much rather if I could just do the rehearsals and nothing else." He said, "No, there is one I'd like to meet, this young Australian composer I'd like to meet," and he mentioned my name. And Lady Spire said, "Oh, you should hear Percy play your music." And he said in a rather weary voice to me, very polite, he's all sweet and kind to everybody, "What pieces of mine do you play?" And I said, "Well, chiefly the folk songs, opus 66, and the Norwegian peasant dances, opus 72. And he said, "I've never heard them played." So, of course, that pleases a composer to hear something he hasn't yet heard. And my knowledge of English folk song, if I may say so, made it quite easy to play Norwegian one, because they're very similar in some ways.
And you studied the concerto with him?
We rehearsed the concerto. He was to conduct it at Leeds, and he conducted, and I played the solo part and some of the orchestral part and so on. We just rehearsed it. Do you remember any particular things that about he said about the concerto, or about the playing of his music? Well, he said about the playing of his music in general. The thing I would have liked, if I'd had better health, if I'd been stronger, I would have liked to have been a strong player. I like loudness, and I like accents. But my health has never permitted me to play. But you have strength, and that's what I value in your music, in your playing.
He has. And we'll have Grieg's Piano Concerto in A minor with Percy Granger as soloist.
Well, that is something to behold. Yes, we heard the BBC Symphony Orchestra at the Royal Albert Hall last night of the Proms. Massive audience. And the soloist Percy Granger, channeled from a 1921 performance on a piano roll, reconstituted, and just played the first movement. They're in the process of changing the roll over for the second movement. And, well, it's quite extraordinary to hear that playing, and they do amazingly well to sort of work without a live soloist. Usually there's an interaction of sorts. Anyhow, it's certainly... I'd go. If they did that in Melbourne, I'd go. I'd have to go to that concert. I'd have to hear it. Has been done in Melbourne, and it's incredible. Mr. Granger lives. See, he wanted to make himself immortal. He wanted everything he'd ever done to be documented and in his mausoleum, and everything to be on show. He even wanted his skeleton to be on show. He asked that his skeleton be there in the mausoleum, in the toilet block next to the conservatorium. Yeah, anyhow, so that's that was quite something, and I'm sort of compelled, still going, you see. The orchestra's still playing. But we'll just fade, and we'll have the next movement another time. We'll come back to this. We'll have to return to this theme, because there must be other works that feature piano roll and orchestra. Well, it's getting to that time of night, folks, getting close to the end, but I did want to feature something else. This is another really quirky thing. And I was reading about Hieronymus Bosch. He was an artist who was active, Netherlands, I think. He wrote this, this amazing piece in between 1490 and 1510. He drew this incredible painting. It's a triptych. It's like an altarpiece, and it's an incredible work, and it sort of looks at the human experiences, and it looks at the Adam and Eve story, and it looks at the descent into hell at the end, and it's got all these people in various stages of human conduct. Anyhow, but the interesting picture is the last one, where everyone descends into hell, and it's got it's horrible, the most worst things you can imagine happening to people. And one poor fellow is being crushed by a lute over a book of music, and he's naked from the bottom down, and there's this devil writing notes on his bare bum. And it's a part of the picture, and it's sort of stylized, and it's not sort of gratuitous. Well, it is gratuitous, but it's acceptable, and it's a famous picture. And anyhow, these notes, everyone thought they were just random notes because the picture's enormous, and this is just one tiny feature of it. And the work's called The Garden of Early Delights, is the name of the work, and it's the third of the triptych of this, the descent into hell. Anyhow, these notes from 1510 are written on the bum of this poor person who's been crushed. But someone's gone to the trouble of carefully annotating the notes on the bare buttocks of this character, and reconstituted it and recorded it, and we now have Hieronymus Bosch's butt music. So it's Renaissance music with a twist. It was sort of pre-Renaissance, really. It's ancient music. It goes back to, 1490. So let's have a listen. It's quite short. It doesn't go for very long, but it is amazing. It's actually a really nice piece, and it doesn't necessarily suggest a descent into Hades, but some people think it might actually be the work of a composer at the time who he didn't like, and it was a bit of an encoded smear on somebody. But it's got people talking anyhow. It's a bit of a theme. So people are exploring this butt music. So let's have a listen. Let's have a listen to a instrumental version of it to start with. VK3SL. Well, we just heard a transcription of Hieronymus Bosch's butt music. It's music inscribed on the bare buttocks of a dismembered man in a painting by the artist Hieronymus Bosch. And, well, it's not a bad piece, is it? I mean, it sort of stands up there, and everyone thought it was just like a series of random notes until someone took trouble to inscribe them. And being such a huge picture, it's one of probably thousands of figures on the painting. It's one of those paintings that would have taken years to paint. And so there's a bit of a message there. It's music which is quite striking. Now, there's a number of different versions of this. Let's have a listen to there's a big picture of it here, of the bare buttocks with all the dots, all the notes all over them. Yeah, here's a choral version, which is also quite special. VK3SL. Very fitting that the last word there was arse. Now, here's a heavy metal version of the same work. Well, there we go. That was some ancient arse music. Music of Hieronymus Bosch, 500-year-old butt song from hell. Inscribed on the bum of a poor fellow who's been crushed by a gigantic lute. And the notes are being inscribed by this demon with a huge long tongue, which is sort of torturing this individual. So it's quite bizarre, but there we go. That's what they did. All right. I think we'll wind up at this point. Now, I'm going to do something else to wind up, and this may or may not go on the log. So I'll say thanks for listening at this point, and we will not be on next week. I've got to go to Cooma next week, so I won't be round, but I'll listen back on Channel D after this last little experiment. So this doesn't need to be announced. Just stand by and something will hopefully work in some way or form. This is VK3SL.